Now, as an aside, I thought it might be interesting to look at Japan's political parties and where they stand on Article 9. Now, in American politics, they have this term hawks and doves. Hawks meaning war hawks, people who generally tend to want to go to war, a bit more aggressive when it comes to foreign policy. And doves are people who tend towards pacifism, diplomacy, people who aren't as keen in American politics to go to war. I thought it'd be interesting to apply that to Japan, with the hawks being those who are keen to sort of rewrite or revisit Japan's Article 9 to make it easier to sort of legitimize the SDF and possibly even move towards having more of a mainstream military. And the doves, in terms of those who want to stick to the Article 9 as it is and oppose changing it and keep that pacifism clause. So now, Reiwa, to start out with, they're quite, I'd say, dovish. They oppose unnecessary military build-up, and they want exclusively defensive defence, so presumably not collective defence or anything like that, and peaceful diplomacy. So I think you'd describe them as fairly dovish. Next up, the SDP. They're also doves. They reject the idea of changing the constitution, and they want to preserve Article 9 as it is, and they reject the idea of Japan being capable of waging war, so very much against the idea, really. So SDP would go also in as doves. LDP. Now, they have a lot of history with this. I suppose you could make an argument that because they've been the party of Japan, the government of Japan, for so many years, since World War II essentially, that they really are sort of dovish because they've failed to change this. They've sort of gone along with the status quo, which is to, although Japan has this self-defense force, they've not moved towards changing Article 9 for most of that time. However, I think they have, under Abe, they did make that step forward to propose changing and discussing having an amendment. So I think you'd have to put them generally in the hawk category. Although it cuts both ways, they have come out in favour to some extent of a referendum and amendment, so I think you have to give them the credit for that and say that they're a hawk in that respect. The Conservative Party of Japan, this new right-wing party, very much a hawk, I'd say. They want to revise Article 9 and to maintain and strengthen, as necessary, Japan's defence. So the Conservative Party of Japan would also go in with LDP as a hawk. Sanzito, similarly, another new right-wing Conservative Party, they are also hawks, and they've expressed that they might be in favour of rewriting the constitution, so they'd also go in as hawks. Next, Ishin, they're hawkish. They want to legitimise the self-defence force, and they want sort of emergency contingencies to be in place as well if there were sort of a crisis. And so generally they're sort of somewhat in favour of revisionism, so I think you'd put Ishin in as hawkish, so they go in that hawk column. DPFP also favour some degree of revision, so you'd put them also in as hawks. Communists, and this is interesting because communists originally expressed concerns about the constitution and the idea that Japan would be left open to having no self-defense. But communists are doves, and they want to defend the provisions of the constitution, including Article 9, and they particularly want the provisions towards peace. So it's very interesting that at the time they were raising concerns about this, but now they want to preserve it, and they're in that dove category. The Constitution Party, they're also doves, and they oppose reform, and they have a respect for pacifism stipulated in the Constitution. So, Constitutional Party, very much in the dove column. And finally, Komeito also go in that dove column. They're in favour of pacifism and oppose changing Article 9 of the Constitution. And as you can see, looking at the final list of the 10 main parties of Japan, you've got 5 hawks, 5 doves. And you can see, given that you need 2/3 of both houses of Japan's parliament system before you even get to the stage of having a national referendum when it comes to this issue, why it's been just so hard to table a constitutional amendment on this, and why the status quo might have lasted for quite so long when you look at how the parties have divided themselves. But that gives you an idea of who the hawks are, who the doves are, roughly, when it comes to this issue.